The mansion felt like it was breathing, exhaling cold air that seeped through my uniform and into my bones. December in Chicago was always cruel, but inside this sprawling estate on the city's North Shore, winter felt almost weaponized. I adjusted the collar of my maid's uniform, trying to stop the chill from creeping down my spine as I dusted crystal figurines worth more than my yearly salary. "New girl? The library needs attention," Mrs. Kovacs' voice sliced through the silence. The head housekeeper never asked, she commanded. 3 weeks into this job, and I still jumped when she appeared. "Yes, ma'am," I said, gathering my cleaning supplies. I needed this job. After my father's medical bills and funeral expenses, I was drowning in debt with a 4-year-old daughter to support. When the agency placed me in this mansion, the pay was double what I'd find elsewhere. The catch? No one lasted long here. Rumors about the owner circulated among the staff in whispers. Mr. Alexander Volkov. I'd never seen him. He was apparently traveling, but his presence haunted every corner of this house. The library doors loomed before me. Dark mahogany carved with intricate scenes I couldn't decipher. I hesitated, then pushed through. The scent hit me first. Leather-bound books, expensive cigars, and something else. Something distinctly masculine. The room was massive, with shelves stretching to the ceiling and a fireplace large enough to stand in. I set to work, carefully dusting between leather-bound first editions. I was stretching to reach a high shelf when I heard it. The soft click of the door, the air in the room changed instantly. "You're new." The voice was like gravel wrapped in silk, deep, with the hint of an accent I couldn't place. I nearly fell from the stepladder, turning to face the voice. He stood in shadows near the doorway, but even in silhouette, he commanded the space. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in what I instinctively knew was a custom suit that probably cost more than my car. His face came into view as he stepped forward. Sharp angles, dark eyes that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, and a jawline that could cut glass. A thin scar ran from his right temple to his cheekbone. Mr. Volkov. It had to be. Yes, sir, Emma Larson. I started 3 weeks ago. I managed, hating how my voice trembled. He moved like a predator, deliberate and fluid. 3 weeks? And we haven't met? His accent curled around the edges of his words. Russian, maybe. He looked at me like he was memorizing every detail. "You've been away, I believe, sir." A slight smile touched his lips but didn't reach his eyes. "And now I'm back." He crossed to a desk I'd just finished polishing and ran a finger across its surface. "You dust more thoroughly than the last one." Something about the way he said, "the last one," sent a chill through me. I clutched my duster tighter. "Thank you, sir." He moved to the bar cart in the corner and poured amber liquid into a crystal tumbler. Ice clinked against glass. "Do you know who I am, Emma Larson?" The way he said my name made it sound like he owned it now. "You're Mr. Volkov. This is your home." He took a slow sip, watching me over the rim of his glass. "That's the simplest truth. Yes." He gestured to the room. "Continue. Don't let me interrupt." But how could I not be interrupted? His presence filled the space like smoke, making it hard to breathe normally. I returned to dusting, painfully aware of his eyes tracking my every movement. The silence stretched between us, thick and uncomfortable. "You have a child," he said suddenly. I froze. "How did you—" "Your file. I review all staff personally." He set his glass down. "A daughter, 4 years old." Fear prickled at the base of my skull. Why would he memorize these details about a maid? "Yes," I said cautiously. "Lily." "Father?" The bluntness of the question caught me off guard. "Not in the picture," I answered, the practiced response sliding out automatically. Something dark flickered across his face. "I see." Desperate to change the subject, I moved to dust the mantelpiece. A collection of photographs in silver frames caught my attention. Most showed Mr. Volkov with men in similar expensive suits, or with beautiful women at glittering events. But one stood apart, a worn photo of a young boy with a severe-looking older woman. Before I could look closer, his hand shot out and laid the frame face down. "Not that one," he said, his voice suddenly ice. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. It's Christmas soon. he interrupted, changing subjects with jarring abruptness. Yes, sir, just 2 weeks away. He turned to look out the window at the snow beginning to fall. The staff will have the day off. Mrs. Kovac arranges it. That's very generous, I said, though from the stiffness in his shoulders, I sensed this wasn't generosity, but something else entirely. And you? What will you do with your daughter on Christmas? He asked, still facing the window. The question seemed oddly personal coming from my employer. We have small traditions, nothing fancy. Opening presents, making cookies. I thought of the tiny tree in our apartment, the few wrapped gifts I'd managed to buy. Lily still believes in Santa. He was quiet for so long I wondered if I'd said something wrong. When he finally turned, his expression was unreadable. Finish up here. Mrs. Kovac will need you in the East Wing. He moved toward the door, then paused. You dust the spines of the books. The others never do. Before I could respond, he was gone, leaving only the lingering scent of his cologne and the impression that something significant had just happened, though I couldn't say what. The next week passed in a blur of Christmas preparations. The mansion transformed under the skilled hands of decorators Mr. Volkov had hired. I glimpsed him occasionally, always from a distance, always surrounded by men with telltale bulges under their jackets. Sometimes I felt his eyes on me as I worked, but when I'd turn, he'd be engaged in conversation or examining documents. One evening, as I was polishing silver in the kitchen, Mrs. Kovac approached. Mr. Volkov wants to see you. His study, now. Her pinched expression suggested this was unusual and possibly problematic. My heart raced as I made my way there, mentally reviewing if I'd made any mistakes. I knocked softly on the door. Enter. He sat behind a massive desk, suit jacket discarded, sleeves rolled up to reveal strong forearms, and the edges of what looked like tattoos disappearing beneath the fabric. Papers were spread before him, but his attention was entirely on me as I entered. Close the door. I did as instructed, my mouth dry. Your daughter, he said without preamble. She has medical issues? The question blindsided me. How did you? Answer the question, Emma. Something in his tone made it clear that evasion wasn't an option. Yes. Chronic asthma. It's expensive. He nodded as if confirming something to himself. And you work 2 jobs. It wasn't a question. The agency wouldn't have told him that. I felt suddenly exposed, as if he'd been investigating me. The weekends. At a diner, I admitted. My neighbor watches Lily. He leaned back, eyes never leaving mine. Sit down. I perched on the edge of a leather chair. I have a proposition for you. Rent. My skin prickled with warning. I'd heard stories about wealthy men and their propositions to female staff. I steeled myself to quit on the spot if necessary. I'll be alone on Christmas Day, he continued, as I am every year. This wasn't where I expected the conversation to go. I remained silent, waiting. I want to experience a family Christmas, the kind you described, with cookies and Santa. He said the last word as if it were foreign to him. I'll pay you $10,000 to bring your daughter here on Christmas Day and create this experience. I blinked, certain I'd misheard. I'm sorry? 20,000, he amended, mistaking my confusion for negotiation. For 1 day. You arrive in the morning, leave in the evening, cook a traditional meal, open gifts, whatever traditions entail. My mind reeled. $20,000 would cover Lily's medical expenses for years. It would change everything. But the request was so strange, and coming from this man, this dangerous man about whom the staff whispered, it felt like walking into a trap. Why? I asked before I could stop myself. His expression hardened. Does it matter? I'm offering you money that would take you a year to earn otherwise. It matters to me, I said, surprising myself with my boldness. He studied me for a long moment, then stood abruptly and walked to the window. I've never had a real Christmas, not once. The admission seemed to cost him something. Is that sufficient explanation? There was something vulnerable in his voice that contradicted everything about his imposing presence. I found myself nodding slowly. We'll come, I said, the words escaping before I'd fully decided, but no strings attached, just a normal Christmas day. He turned, and for a brief moment, I glimpsed something like relief in his eyes before it vanished behind his mask of control. Of course. Mrs. Kovac will give you details. He returned to his desk. That will be all. I rose to leave, but at the door, I paused. Mr. Volkov, what would you like for Christmas? The question seemed to startle him. No one has ever asked me that. Well, I'm asking now, I said, emboldened by the strangeness of the entire situation. He looked at me with an intensity that made my breath catch. Surprise me, Emma Larson. The words felt like both a challenge and a threat. I nodded and slipped out, my heart hammering in my chest. What had I just agreed to, and why did I feel like I'd just made a deal with the devil? As Christmas approached, I noticed changes in the house. Security tightened. Men I didn't recognize patrolled the grounds. Twice I overheard heated arguments in Russian behind closed doors. The atmosphere grew tense, but Mr. Volkov maintained a distance that made me wonder if our strange arrangement was still happening. Then, 2 days before Christmas, I found a black credit card on my cleaning cart, with a note in elegant handwriting. For the girls' gifts, no limit. A.V. That night, after tucking Lily into bed, I sat at our small kitchen table and wondered what I'd set in motion by accepting his invitation, and whether I should be running in the opposite direction instead of straight into the lion's den. Christmas Eve arrived with a heavy snowfall that transformed Chicago into a winter wonderland. I spent the day with Lily, baking cookies and wrapping the gifts I'd purchased with Mr. Volkov's card, toys I could never have afforded on my own. I'd been conservative, despite his no-limit note, but still managed to get everything on Lily's wish list and more. "Mommy, will Santa find us at the big house tomorrow?" Lily asked as I tucked her into bed that night. I brushed her dark curls away from her face. "Of course, baby." I wrote him a special letter explaining everything. Her eyes so like her father's, the man who'd abandoned us when I told him I was pregnant, sparkled with excitement, and we're going to have Christmas with the man who owns the castle. I smiled at her description of Volkov's mansion. It's not exactly a castle. And yes, Mr. Volkov will be there. Remember what we talked about? He's never had a real Christmas before. That's the saddest thing ever, she declared with the pure empathy of childhood. I'm going to make him a special drawing. My heart squeezed. That's very kind of you, Lilybug. Now sleep tight. We have a big day tomorrow. After she fell asleep, I finished packing everything we'd need. The kitchen staff had been given instructions to leave all the ingredients for a traditional Christmas dinner, which I would prepare. It seemed Mr. Volkov wanted an authentic experience, not one catered by professionals. I barely slept that night, alternating between excitement about the money and anxiety about spending an intimate family holiday with a man who radiated danger. What did I really know about Alexander Volkov? Only whispers among the staff. That he had connections to the Russian Mafia, that people who crossed him disappeared, that the business meetings held in his study weren't entirely legitimate, yet there had been that moment of vulnerability in his office, the admission that he'd never experienced a real Christmas. Despite my better judgment, it had touched something in me. A black SUV with tinted windows arrived precisely at 7 a.m. on Christmas morning. The driver, a stoic man with a telltale bulge under his jacket, loaded our bags in a box of wrapped presents. Lily bounced with excitement in her red Christmas dress and white tights, clutching her favorite stuffed rabbit. The mansion looked different upon our arrival. The usual staff was absent, and the massive Christmas tree in the foyer, which had been decorated by professionals in silver and blue, now featured colorful additions near the bottom, as though someone had attempted to make it more child-friendly. "Welcome," Volkov's voice came from the grand staircase. He descended slowly, dressed more casually than I'd ever seen him, dark jeans and a charcoal sweater that looked soft enough to be cashmere. Without his suit armor, he appeared almost human. Lily ducked behind my legs, suddenly shy. "Thank you for having us," I said, filling the awkward silence. "This is my daughter, Lily." Volkov approached and crouched down to Lily's level, a gesture that seemed strangely humble from a man of his stature. "Hello, Lily. I'm Alex." Lily peered out cautiously. "Your house is huge. Mommy says you never had Christmas before. That's sad." A flicker of something, amusement perhaps, crossed his face. "It is sad, which is why I'm glad you're here to show me how it's done." To my surprise, He produced a small, wrapped package from behind his back and offered it to Lily. "I believe one gift on Christmas morning is traditional?" Lily looked to me for permission, and I nodded, thrown off balance by his thoughtfulness. She tore into the wrapping paper, revealing a beautiful music box with a dancing ballerina. "It's pretty," she gasped, opening the lid to hear the tinkling melody. "It was mine when I was a child," Volkov said softly, so only I could hear. "One of the few things I've kept." The revelation struck me. This wasn't just some expensive gift he'd ordered an assistant to buy. This was personal, perhaps the only personal thing he had from childhood. Why would he give it to a little girl he'd just met? Volkov straightened, his mask of control sliding back into place. "I've had the kitchen stocked according to your list. I hope everything is satisfactory." "I'm sure it will be," I assured him. "Lily likes to help make breakfast on Christmas morning. Would you like to join us?" It was strange inviting him to participate in activities in his own home, but this whole arrangement defied normal employer-employee dynamics. He nodded once. I would. What followed was one of the most surreal experiences of my life. Alexander Volkov, the man whose name was whispered in fear by his staff, stood in his gourmet kitchen wearing an apron as Lily directed him on the proper way to flip pancakes. He followed her instructions with the same intensity he probably brought to business negotiations, and when he successfully created a perfect pancake, the smile that briefly illuminated his face transformed him. After breakfast, we moved to the library, the same room where we'd first met, now warm with a crackling fire. The Christmas tree here was smaller, but decorated with the same professional touch as the one in the foyer. "We open presents now," Lily announced, her initial shyness completely gone. "Lily," I warned gently, "remember your manners. Please, can we open presents now, Mr. Alex?" she amended with an angelic smile. "Of course," he replied, and I noticed he seemed almost nervous, a concept I wouldn't have associated with him before today. I distributed the gifts, ensuring Lily had plenty to open. I'd brought a small gift for Volkov as well, a leather-bound edition of A Christmas Carol that had consumed a significant portion of my last paycheck. He seemed genuinely surprised when I handed it to him. "You didn't need to get me anything. It's Christmas," I said simply. "Everyone gets presents." When he unwrapped it, his fingers traced the embossed cover with unexpected reverence. "Dickens. I've never read this." "It's about a man who learns the meaning of Christmas," I explained. I thought it fitting. His eyes met mine, and for a moment, the intensity in them made my breath catch. "Thank you, Emma." Lily's delighted squeals as she opened her gifts broke the moment. Volkov watched her with fascination, as though studying a rare species. When she tore open the art supplies he'd added to the pile, professional-grade materials, not children's toys, his attention was rapt on her reaction. "These are fancy," she exclaimed. "Mommy, look. Real paints like the artists use. They're beautiful, Lily." I agreed, wondering how he'd known about her artistic interests. "I want to paint something right now," she declared. "Perhaps later," I suggested. "There's one more special gift." I handed her the large box that contained the dollhouse she'd been dreaming of for months, complete with furniture and tiny dolls. Her eyes widened as she unwrapped it. "Santa knew. He really knew," she gasped, throwing her arms around my neck. Over her shoulder, I caught Volkov's expression, a mixture of wonder and something like longing that made my heart twist unexpectedly. "Mr. Alex, did Santa bring you anything?" Lily asked innocently. A shadow passed over his face. "I don't think Santa visits grown-ups, especially not ones like me." "That's silly," Lily declared confidently. "Santa visits everyone who's good." "Were you good this year?" The question hung in the air, loaded with implications neither Lily nor Volkov could fully articulate to each other. I held my breath. "I'm trying to be," he finally answered, his voice uncharacteristically soft. "Today." Lily nodded, satisfied with his response, and returned to her dollhouse. I busied myself collecting discarded wrapping paper, unsettled by the raw honesty of his answer. "I have something for you as well," Volkov said suddenly, handing me a small velvet box. My stomach dropped. This wasn't part of our arrangement. "Mr. Volkov, that's not necessary." "Alex," he corrected. "And please, open it." With reluctant fingers, I lifted the lid. Inside was a delicate silver bracelet with a single charm, a lily flower crafted from what appeared to be diamonds. "I can't accept this," I whispered, stunned by its obvious value. "You can, and you will," he said with quiet authority. "It's Christmas, Emma. Everyone gets presents." He took the bracelet from the box and fastened it around my wrist, before I could protest further. His fingers lingered on my skin, sending an unexpected current of electricity up my arm. "Thank you," I managed, unable to meet his gaze. "It's beautiful. It suits you," he said simply. The rest of the morning passed in a blur of activity. Lily insisted on showing Mr. Alex how to play with each of her new toys. To my continued surprise, he participated with unexpected patience. When she asked him to join her tea party with her new stuffed animals, he sat cross-legged on the floor without hesitation, his large frame comically out of place among the small toys. Around noon, I excused myself to begin preparing Christmas dinner. In the kitchen, I found every ingredient I'd requested, along with some I hadn't, expensive additions that elevated the simple meal I'd planned. I was peeling potatoes when I sensed his presence. Volkov stood in the doorway watching me. "Is everything all right?" I asked. "Where's Lily?" "She's drawing a picture. She insisted it was a surprise." He stepped into the kitchen. "You don't have to do this alone. I can help." I nearly laughed at the image of Alexander Volkov doing kitchen work. "Do you know how to cook?" A wry smile touched his lips. "I know how to follow instructions." And so, I found myself directing one of Chicago's most dangerous men on how to properly mash potatoes and season a turkey. He approached the task with the same precision he likely brought to his business dealings. When he accidentally splashed gravy on his expensive sweater, I expected anger. Instead, he laughed. A genuine sound that transformed his face and made something warm unfurl in my chest. "You should do that more often," I said without thinking. "Do what?" he asked, wiping at the stain. "Laugh. It suits you." Our eyes met across the kitchen island, and something shifted in the air between us. For a moment, he wasn't my employer or a dangerous criminal, and I wasn't his maid. We were just two people sharing Christmas Day. The moment broke when Lily bounded into the kitchen clutching a drawing. "I finished. Look, Mr. Alex!" He crouched down to her level as she proudly displayed her artwork, a childish but recognizable depiction of 3 figures in front of a large house. The tallest figure wore black. The medium figure had yellow hair like mine, and the smallest had dark curls like Lily's. "This is you and Mommy and me," she explained unnecessarily. "For your Christmas. So you remember." Something flashed across Volkov's face, an emotion so raw and unguarded that I felt like an intruder witnessing it. He stared at the crayon drawing as if Lily had handed him something priceless. "Thank you," he said, his voice rougher than usual. "I'll keep this always." He carefully took the drawing and set it on the counter, treating it with the same reverence he might give to an important contract. Lily beamed at his reaction, pleased to have made such an impression. "Can I help with dinner too?" she asked, bouncing on her toes. I glanced at the clock. Perfect timing. "You can help set the table." To my surprise, Volkov insisted on joining this activity as well. I watched as my daughter instructed him on the proper placement of forks and napkins, his massive hands looking out of place among the delicate china. There was something both comical and touching about the scene, one of Chicago's most feared men taking direction from a 4-year-old with unwavering attention. As we worked, I caught glimpses of the security personnel through the windows. They patrolled the perimeter of the property with heightened vigilance, reminding me that while we played at normal family Christmas inside, Volkov's world continued to operate around us. It was a jarring reminder of who he really was. When dinner was finally ready, we gathered in the formal dining room. Rather than sitting at opposite ends of the massive table, Volkov had arranged the settings so we sat closer together, Lily and I on one side, him on the other. The table gleamed with crystal and silver, an elaborate setting for our relatively simple meal. "This looks wonderful," he said, surveying the food. "We say grace first," Lily announced, "and everybody has to say what they're thankful for. That's the rule." I tensed, unsure how Volkov would respond to this tradition. but he simply nodded and extended his hands. One toward me, one toward Lily. After a moment's hesitation, I placed my hand in his. His palm was warm and calloused in unexpected places, not the smooth hands of someone who only signed papers. Lily began with her usual childish prayer, thanking God for presents and food, and her new friend Mr. Alex. When she finished, she added, "I'm thankful for Mommy and for getting to have Christmas in a castle and for Mr. Alex not being alone anymore." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "I'm thankful for you, Lilybug, and for new opportunities." I didn't specify what those opportunities were, but I felt Volkov's hand tighten slightly around mine. When it was his turn, he was silent for so long I thought he might refuse to participate. Finally he spoke, his voice quiet but steady. "I am thankful for this day, for hospitality freely given." His eyes met mine across the table. For second chances. The simple sincerity of his words caught me off guard. I wondered what second chances he was referring to and why he felt he needed them. Dinner proceeded with surprising ease. Volkov complimented the food repeatedly, seeming genuinely impressed with our collaborative cooking effort. Lily chattered away, asking him questions about his house and his life that would have been intrusive from anyone else. "Why do you have so many big men walking around outside?" she asked innocently. I nearly choked on my wine. "Lily, that's not... It's all right." Volkov interrupted smoothly. "They're there to keep me safe, Lily. Like bodyguards?" Her eyes widened. "Are you famous?" A small smile played at his lips. "Not famous, no. But sometimes people in business have disagreements, and it's better to be careful. My teacher says we should use our words when we have disagreements," she informed him seriously. Something that might have been amusement flickered in his eyes. "That's very wise advice. I try to do that first, always." The first hung ominously in the air, a reminder of what might come after words failed. I changed the subject quickly, steering the conversation to safer topics. After dinner, we moved to the library again, where Volkov had arranged for a classic Christmas movie to play on a screen that descended from the ceiling. Lily was delighted by Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, while Volkov watched with the intense concentration of someone studying a foreign culture. "Did you really never celebrate Christmas?" I asked quietly, as Lily sang along with the movie. He kept his eyes on the screen. "My mother didn't believe in celebrations. After she died, I was sent to a state facility in Russia. There were no holidays there." The matter-of-fact way he delivered this information made it all the more heartbreaking. "And as an adult, you never wanted to create those experiences for yourself?" His jaw tightened. My life took a different path. Before I could press further, Lily climbed into his lap without warning, settling herself comfortably, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. I started to call her back, but Volkov gave a slight shake of his head. "It's fine," he murmured, his arms awkwardly hovering before gently settling around her small form. Watching them together, Lily's complete innocence against his dangerous power, created a lump in my throat. He held her as if she were made of glass, his eyes reflecting a mixture of wonder and uncertainty. As the movie ended, Lily's eyelids grew heavy. The excitement of the day was catching up with her. "Time for bed, Lilybug," I said, rising from my seat. "But it's Christmas," she protested sleepily. "We haven't had hot chocolate yet." "Hot chocolate?" Volkov questioned. "Another tradition," I explained. "Hot chocolate before bed on Christmas night." "Then we must honor the tradition," he decided, standing with Lily still in his arms. "I'll have it prepared while you get her ready for bed." I led him to the guest room where our overnight bags waited. The room was enormous, with a 4-poster bed that Lily declared was just like a princess. A smaller adjoining room had been prepared with a child's bed, complete with fairy lights strung above it. "You've thought of everything," I commented as he set Lily down. "I wanted it to be right," he replied simply. After I'd helped Lily into her pajamas and brushed her teeth, we returned to the library to find Volkov waiting with 3 mugs of hot chocolate, each topped with whipped cream and chocolate shavings. "This looks amazing," I said, accepting a mug. "I had the chef prepare them before he left," Volkov admitted. "I'm not skilled at making beverages." We settled by the fire, Lily fighting sleep to sip her drink. The snow continued falling outside, creating a cocoon of warmth and isolation around us in the massive house. Will you read me a story, Mr. Alex? Lily asked, her voice drowsy. He looked startled by the request. I'm not sure I would be very good at that. Please. Mommy always reads The Night Before Christmas on Christmas. His eyes flicked to mine, seeking guidance. I retrieved the book from our bag and handed it to him. It's a classic. I brought it just in case. Hesitantly, he accepted the book. Lily climbed back into his lap without invitation, settling against his chest as if she belonged there. I watched as Alexander Volkov, rumored crime boss and feared businessman, began to read a children's Christmas poem, his deep voice giving the familiar words new gravity. He stumbled occasionally over the cadence, clearly unfamiliar with the story, but Lily didn't seem to mind. By the time he reached the end, Happy Christmas to all, and to all a good night, her eyes had closed, her breathing deep and regular. She's asleep, he whispered, looking down at her with an expression that made my heart twist. I should put her to bed, I said, moving to take her. Allow me, he countered, standing carefully with her cradled against his chest. I led him back to the guest room, where he laid her on the bed with surprising gentleness. I covered her with the blanket and pressed a kiss to her forehead. She's remarkable, Volkov said softly as we backed out of the room. She is, I agreed, leaving the door slightly ajar. We returned to the library in silence. The day was coming to an end, and with it, our strange arrangement. Soon we would return to our real roles, employer and employee, powerful man and struggling single mother. Thank you, he said suddenly, standing by the fire, for today. You paid for it, I reminded him, though the words felt hollow after the intimacy we'd shared. His expression hardened slightly. Is that all this was to you? A transaction? The question caught me off guard. I'm not sure what you mean. He moved closer, his presence suddenly overwhelming. I think you do, Emma. I think you felt it too. My heart hammered in my chest. Felt what? That this wasn't just about Christmas. Or money. His eyes searched mine. There's been something since that first day in this room. I took a step back. Mr. Volkov. Alex, he corrected sharply. After today, I think you can use my name. Alex, I conceded. I work for you. The situation is complicated. Life is complicated, he countered. My life more than most. But today was simple. Today felt right. There was something vulnerable in his admission, at odds with his commanding presence. I couldn't deny the connection I'd felt with him throughout the day, watching him interact with Lily, seeing glimpses of the man beneath the feared exterior. I don't know anything about you, I said finally. Not really. A shadow passed over his face. Perhaps that's for the best. Is it? I challenged, surprising myself with my boldness. The man I saw today, the one who read my daughter Christmas stories and helped make dinner, that man doesn't seem like someone who needs to hide. You don't understand what I've done, who I am. His voice had an edge of warning. Then tell me, I said softly. Help me understand. He stared into the fire, his profile harsh in the flickering light. My business interests are diverse. Some operate in gray areas. The rumors among the staff are likely true, he finished. I came to this country with nothing, Emma. I built everything I have through whatever means necessary. Criminal means, I clarified. His jaw tightened. I protect what's mine. I deal harshly with enemies. I don't apologize for that. I should have been frightened by this confirmation, but instead I found myself studying him with curiosity. The dangerous man and the gentle one I'd glimpsed today, they were the same person, contradictory as it seemed. Why me? I asked finally. Why choose me for this experiment? He turned to face me fully. You looked at me differently from the first moment. Not with fear, but with curiosity. When you speak to me, you see the man, not the reputation. He paused. And Lily. She reminds me of someone I lost, someone I failed to protect. The vulnerability in his confession hung between us, changing the atmosphere of the room. I wanted to ask who he'd lost, but something in his expression warned me not to probe that particular wound. I should turn in, I said instead, suddenly aware of how alone we were in the massive house. It's been a long day. He nodded, but as I turned to leave, his hand caught my wrist, the one adorned with the bracelet he'd given me. The touch was gentle but insistent. Stay. Just a little longer. It wasn't a command, despite his natural authority. It was a request, almost a plea. I hesitated, then slowly sat on the leather sofa. He poured 2 glasses of amber liquid from a crystal decanter and offered one to me. I don't usually... It's Christmas, he said, a hint of amusement in his voice. Make an exception. I accepted the glass, and he sat beside me, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his body, but not so close as to be inappropriate. The whiskey burned pleasantly as it went down, warming me from within. Tell me about Lily's father, he said abruptly. I nearly choked on my drink. Why would you want to know about him? Because he's not here, Alex replied simply. Because he left you both. I stared into my glass, debating how much to share. His name was Daniel. We met in college. I was studying education before I had to drop out. He was charming, ambitious. When I got pregnant, he made it clear a family wasn't part of his plan. I took another sip. I haven't seen him since I told him about the baby. Alex's expression darkened. He provides nothing for his child? He signed away his parental rights. It was cleaner that way. Cleaner, he repeated, the word sounding like a curse on his lips. A man who abandons his blood is no man at all. There was a vehemence in his voice that surprised me. Not everyone is cut out to be a parent, I said, though I'd made the same judgment 1,000 times. And you? Was motherhood your plan? I smiled, thinking of Lily. No, but it's the best thing that ever happened to me. He watched me over the rim of his glass. You're a good mother. I've seen many who aren't. You sound like you speak from experience. I ventured carefully. He was quiet for a long moment. My mother was harsh. She believed weakness should be beaten out of a child. His fingers absently traced the scar on his face. After she died, the state facilities were worse. Children are cruel when they've been shown only cruelty. My heart ached at the matter-of-fact way he described his childhood. I'm sorry. Don't be. It forged me into who I am. He finished his drink, though sometimes I wonder who I might have been otherwise. The man I'd seen today, reading to Lily, laughing in the kitchen. Perhaps that was a glimpse of who he might have been without the cruelty that shaped him. The thought made me sad for reasons I couldn't fully articulate. It's not too late, you know, I said softly. To be different. His eyes met mine, intense and searching. Is that what you think? That I could change? I think you already did, at least for today. Something shifted in his expression, a softening around his eyes, a vulnerability that made him seem suddenly younger. Without warning, he reached out and brushed a strand of hair from my face, his fingers lingering against my cheek. Emma, he said, my name almost a sigh on his lips. I knew I should pull away. He was my employer, a dangerous man by his own admission. But the tenderness in his touch contradicted everything I'd been warned about him. I found myself leaning slightly into his hand. The gesture seemed to decide something for him. He set his glass down and moved closer, one hand coming up to cup my face. Tell me to stop, he murmured, his face inches from mine. I should have. Every rational part of my brain screamed that this was a mistake. Instead, I set my own glass aside and whispered, I don't want you to. His lips met mine with surprising gentleness. The kiss was questioning at first, then grew deeper as I responded. His hand slid to the nape of my neck, drawing me closer until I could feel the solid wall of his chest against mine. He tasted of expensive whiskey and something uniquely him. Something dangerous and compelling that made my head spin more than the alcohol. When we finally broke apart, I was breathless. This is complicated, I whispered against his lips. Everything worthwhile is, he countered, his thumb tracing my lower lip. For a moment, wrapped in the warmth of his arms with the Christmas fire crackling beside us, I allowed myself to believe it could be that simple. That the connection we'd formed today could overcome the vast differences in our worlds. A noise from outside, the crunch of tires on snow, shattered the illusion. Alex tensed instantly, his entire demeanor changing. He was on his feet in one fluid motion, moving to the window. Get Lily, he ordered, his voice no longer gentle but commanding. Now. What's happening? I asked, suddenly afraid. Now, Emma! The sharpness in his tone propelled me into motion. I rushed to the guest room, scooping a still sleeping Lily into my arms along with her stuffed rabbit. When I returned to the library, Alex was speaking rapidly into a phone in Russian, his expression thunderous. Armed men had appeared in the room, receiving instructions with grim nods. "What's going on?" I demanded, clutching Lily to my chest. He ended his call and turned to me. "We have unwelcome visitors. Nothing for you to worry about, but I need to get you both somewhere safe." "Unwelcome visitors with guns?" I guessed, fear knotting my stomach. His jaw tightened. "Business competitors who lack respect for Christmas truces." He nodded to one of his men. "Mikhail will take you to the panic room. You'll be safe there." "I don't want to go to a panic room," I protested. "I want to leave." "That's not an option right now," he said, checking a handgun before tucking it into his waistband. The sight of the weapon made this nightmare suddenly, terrifyingly real. "The property is surrounded." Lily stirred in my arms, blinking sleepily. "Mommy?" "What's happening?" "Nothing, baby," I lied, my voice shaking. "We're just going to play a little game of hide and seek." Alex approached us, his expression softening slightly as he looked at Lily. "You'll be safe, I promise you, both of you." He pressed a quick, hard kiss to my forehead. "Trust me." Before I could respond, he was issuing more orders to his men. Mikhail, a mountain of a man with a surprisingly gentle manner, guided us through the house to what appeared to be a wine cellar. He pressed a hidden panel, revealing a heavy steel door. "In here, please," he said in a thick accent. "Everything you need inside. Very safe." The panic room was smaller than I expected, but well-appointed. A couch, bathroom facilities, a cabinet I assumed contained food and water, and multiple screens showing security feeds from around the property. I settled Lily on the couch, wrapping her in a blanket. She had fallen back asleep during our hurried journey, thankfully unaware of the danger. "How long do we need to stay here?" I asked Mikhail. "Mr. Volkov will come when safe," he replied, then hesitated. "A good man, Miss Emma. Better than most, think." With that cryptic statement, he closed the door, the heavy locks engaging with ominous finality. Alone with my sleeping daughter, I watched the security feeds with growing horror. Black-clad figures moved across the snowy grounds, exchanged gunfire with Alex's men. I couldn't tell who was winning, could only pray that whatever business dispute this was would end quickly. On one screen, I spotted Alex. He moved with lethal grace, directing his men while taking cover behind a stone balustrade. The man I saw now bore no resemblance to the one who had read, "The Night Before Christmas," to my daughter hours earlier. This was Alexander Volkov, the man whose reputation made his staff tremble. Efficient, dangerous, and utterly in control. A notification on my phone broke my horrified trance. A text from an unknown number. "Stay where you are. We'll come for you when it's over." The fighting continued for what felt like hours, but was probably less than 30 minutes. Eventually, the intruders retreated, leaving several dark forms sprawled in the snow. I felt sick watching it, knowing people had died just outside while Lily and I had been celebrating Christmas. What had I gotten us into? How could I have been so foolish as to bring my child into this man's world, dangerous as it clearly was? The door to the panic room eventually opened to reveal Alex himself. He'd changed clothes. The casual Christmas sweater replaced by tactical gear, and a darkening bruise marked his cheekbone. Otherwise, he appeared unharmed. "It's over," he said simply. I stood, anger replacing my fear. "What the hell was that?" "The Bratva doesn't respect holidays," he replied, as if that explained everything. "Gavrilov has been trying to take my territory for months." "Territory?" I repeated incredulously. "Like this is some kind of gang war? I brought my child into this." Shame flickered across his face. "I didn't expect this. There's usually a truce during holidays." "Usually? God, Alex, people are dead out there." "People who came to kill me," he countered, his voice hardening. "I don't apologize for protecting what's mine." "What's yours?" I echoed, suddenly exhausted. "Well, we're not yours. I want to leave. Now." Something like pain flashed in his eyes. "Emma." "No," I cut him off. "This was a mistake. All of it. You paid for a Christmas experience and you got it. Transaction complete." He flinched at my deliberate echo of our earlier conversation. It was more than that. You know it was. I looked at my daughter, still miraculously asleep despite everything. It doesn't matter what it was. I can't do this. I can't expose Lily to whatever this is. I gestured vaguely to encompass the guns, the violence, the dead men in the snow. Alex was silent for a long moment, conflict evident on his face. Finally, he nodded. I'll have Mikhail drive you home. Thank you, I said stiffly. He helped gather our things while I carried Lily. The mansion felt different now, the Christmas decorations garish and false against the backdrop of what had just occurred. As Mikhail loaded our bags into the SUV, Alex pulled me aside. The money will be in your account by morning, he said, and I've arranged for Lily's medical expenses to be covered, permanently. I started to protest, but he raised a hand. Please, let me do this much. Too tired to argue, I nodded, thank you. He reached out as if to touch my face, then dropped his hand. I'm sorry about tonight. I wanted to give you both something perfect. Nothing's ever perfect, I replied softly, especially not things built on payments and pretending. The hurt in his eyes was unmistakable, but he straightened, mask sliding back into place. Goodbye, Emma. As Mikhail drove us away from the mansion, I watched the lights recede in the distance. Lily slept with her head in my lap, blissfully unaware of how our Christmas fairy tale had shattered. I touched the bracelet on my wrist, feeling the cool metal against my skin. I should remove it, I thought. Leave it, and this night behind. But my fingers refused to undo the clasp. 3 days passed in a blur. I returned to work, not at Volkov's mansion, but at the diner, picking up extra shifts to distract myself. The bank transfer had appeared in my account as promised, $20,000 that would change everything for Lily and me. Along with it came a separate notification that a medical trust had been established in Lily's name, covering any healthcare expenses she might need indefinitely. I should have felt only relief, but instead, I found myself replaying Christmas Day constantly. The laughter in the kitchen, Lily on Alex's lap as he read to her, the way his lips felt against mine before everything fell apart. Mrs. Kovac had called twice, asking when I would return to work at the mansion. I hadn't answered. On New Year's Eve, I was wiping down counters after my shift when my phone rang, an unknown number. Hello? I answered cautiously. Emma. Alex's voice sent an involuntary shiver down my spine. I need to see you. I gripped the counter. I don't think that's a good idea. Please, he said, the words sounding foreign from him. One conversation. Then, if you wish never to see me again, I'll respect that. I closed my eyes, remembering the gunfire, the bodies in the snow. I can't bring Lily. Just you, he interrupted. Tonight, I'll send a car. I should have refused. Instead, I heard myself say, I get off at 9. The car will be waiting, he replied. And the line went dead. I stared at my phone, wondering what I was doing. The smart choice would be to take Alex's money, find another job, and forget I ever met Alexander Volkov. But something pulled me toward him despite everything, some connection I couldn't explain or deny. At 9 sharp, a familiar black SUV idled outside the diner. My neighbor had agreed to watch Lily overnight, a New Year's Eve sleepover that delighted my daughter. I slid into the back seat, my heart racing. Where are we going? I asked the driver. Not Mikhail this time, but another of Alex's taciturn security men. Mr. Volkov's penthouse, he replied, pulling into traffic. I'd known Alex owned multiple properties, but I'd never been to his personal residence. The driver took us to a sleek high-rise overlooking the lake, where a private elevator whisked us to the top floor. The security man escorted me to a door, then retreated. Taking a deep breath, I knocked. The door opened immediately, revealing Alex. He'd lost weight in the short time since Christmas, and shadows darkened the skin beneath his eyes. His usual impeccable appearance was slightly rumpled, as if he'd been running his hands through his hair repeatedly. You came, he said simply, stepping back to let me enter. The penthouse was a study in minimalist luxury, all clean lines and floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing Chicago's glittering skyline. Unlike the mansion's old-world opulence, this space felt modern, almost stark. Can I get you something to drink? He offered, moving to a bar cart. I'm fine, I replied, remaining standing though my legs felt unsteady. You wanted to talk. He poured himself a drink, then turned to face me fully. I've missed you. Both of you. The simple admission caught me off guard. Alex, please let me finish, he said, setting his untouched drink aside. I've spent my life building walls, creating a fortress around myself where nothing could touch me, nothing could hurt me. He moved closer. Then you walked into my library, and somehow, you got past every defense. My heart hammered in my chest. That doesn't change who you are. What you do, doesn't it? He challenged. I haven't slept since Christmas. I keep seeing Lily's face when she gave me that drawing. I keep feeling your lips against mine. And I keep asking myself what kind of man I want to be. What does that mean exactly? He ran a hand through his hair, confirming my earlier observation. I've made arrangements to transition my businesses to legitimate enterprises only. I'm stepping back from the other aspects of my empire. I stared at him in disbelief, just like that. After Christmas. It's not simple, he admitted. There are complications, negotiations. Some of my associates aren't pleased. But yes, the decision was made after Christmas. After you. I don't understand, I said, shaking my head. Why would you upend your entire life because of one day? Because of me? Because for the first time since I was a child, I felt something real. The raw honesty in his voice was startling. With you and Lily, I wasn't playing a role or maintaining a facade. I was just a man experiencing Christmas with a family. We're not your family, Alex, I said gently. Pain flashed across his face. I know that. But you showed me what I've been missing. What I could have. He stepped closer. What I want. My throat tightened. You can't just decide you want a ready-made family because you enjoyed playing house for a day. That's not what this is, he insisted. I've never met anyone like you, Emma. You see me? Not just the power, or the money, or the reputation. You challenge me. You're not afraid to stand up to me. I was plenty afraid the other night, I countered. But you stood your ground anyway, he pointed out. You protected your daughter. You held me accountable. He moved closer still, close enough that I could smell his cologne. Do you know how rare that is in my world? I did know, actually. I'd seen how people tiptoed around him, how they deferred to his every whim. Even Mrs. Kovach, formidable as she was with the rest of the staff, spoke to him with careful deference. What exactly are you asking for, Alex? I needed him to be clear. A chance, he said simply. To see if what we felt on Christmas was real. To explore whatever this is between us. With no guns or gang wars, I couldn't keep the edge from my voice. He winced but nodded. I can't promise there won't be complications as I transition out. But I'm trying, Emma. For the first time in my life, I'm trying to be something different. I wrapped my arms around myself, struggling with conflicting emotions. I need to think about this. It's not just me. Lily adores you and deserves a mother who's happy, he finished, and I'll never do anything to endanger her again. You have my word. Coming from another man, it might have sounded like just a promise. From Alex, with his intense gaze and absolute conviction, it felt like a vow written in blood. I need time, I repeated. He nodded, seeming to accept this. Of course. He hesitated, then added, Stay for dinner at least. It's New Year's Eve. I glanced at my watch, nearly 10. I should get home to Lily. You said she's at a sleepover, he reminded me gently. Please, Emma. Just dinner. Against my better judgment, I agreed. We ate on his terrace, despite the winter chill, warmed by outdoor heaters. The food was delivered from an upscale restaurant. Nothing we had to prepare together like our Christmas meal. The conversation flowed more easily than I expected. Alex told me about his childhood in Russia, about coming to America with nothing but determination and street smarts. I shared stories about Lily's early years, the challenges and joys of raising her alone. We carefully avoided topics like his business, or the violent interruption to our Christmas. As midnight approached, we stood at the terrace railing, watching fireworks begin to pop across the city skyline. Last year I spent New Year's Eve alone in this apartment, reviewing acquisition documents, Alex said, his voice thoughtful. I had everything I thought I wanted: success, power, respect. And now? I asked, watching his profile against the sparkling lights. He turned to me, his expression unguarded. Now I know how hollow it all is without someone to share it with. The city erupted in celebration as midnight struck. Fireworks blazed across the sky in brilliant bursts of color. Alex stepped closer, his eyes questioning. "May I?" he asked softly. I nodded, and he leaned down to press his lips against mine. A kiss that held promise and possibility rather than the heated urgency of Christmas night. When we parted, he kept me close, his arms encircling me against the winter chill. "Happy New Year, Emma," he murmured against my hair. "Happy New Year, Alex," I replied, allowing myself to sink into his embrace just for this moment, this new beginning. The weeks that followed unfolded with careful deliberation. Alex kept his distance, respecting my request for time, but sent thoughtful gifts, not expensive jewelry or extravagances, but things that showed he'd been listening. Art supplies for Lily, a first edition of my favorite novel, Homemade Soup, when I mentioned on the phone that I had a cold. I returned to work at the mansion, though things had changed. The security was still present but less obvious. Alex himself was rarely there, running his businesses from his downtown offices, as he navigated what I gathered was a complex extraction from his more illicit enterprises. A month after New Year's, he invited Lily and me to the Chicago Aquarium after hours, a private tour that left my daughter wide-eyed with wonder. I watched as Alex patiently answered her endless questions, kneeling to her level to point out colorful fish and fascinating sea creatures. The tenderness in his interaction with her tugged at something deep in my chest. "He likes us a lot, doesn't he, Mommy?" Lily asked as we drove home that night, her voice drowsy. "I think he does, baby," I admitted. "I like him too," she declared with 4-year-old certainty. "He looks scary sometimes, but he's actually nice, like the beast in my story, out of the mouths of babes," I thought with a wry smile. As winter thawed into spring, our relationship gradually deepened. Alex included Lily in many of our outings: trips to the zoo, picnics in the park, a weekend at a lakeside cabin where he taught her to fish. Other times we spent time just the two of us: quiet dinners, long walks along the lakefront, evenings curled on his sofa, talking until dawn. I learned the man behind the fearsome reputation. How he loved classical music, but couldn't carry a tune himself. How he read voraciously, particularly history and philosophy. How he could speak 5 languages fluently. How he secretly funded several children's homes, remembering his own childhood in state care. In turn, I shared parts of myself I'd kept guarded since Daniel's abandonment, my dreams of finishing my education someday, my fears about being both mother and father to Lily, my childhood in a small Minnesota town I rarely visited now that my parents were gone. The first time we made love was a revelation. Alex's controlled power channeled into exquisite tenderness, his hands reverent as they traced my body. Afterward, he held me as if I might disappear, his vulnerability in those moments more intimate than the act itself. "I love you," he whispered against my skin. I never thought I would say those words to anyone. Tears pricked my eyes as I realized I felt the same. Against all odds, against all reason, I had fallen in love with Alexander Volkov. But shadows still lingered at the edges of our happiness. Occasionally, Alex would receive phone calls that made his expression harden, and he would step away to speak in rapid Russian. Twice he canceled our plans with vague explanations about business complications. Once, I noticed a fresh bruise on his ribs when his shirt rode up. "You promised me you were getting out," I confronted him after that discovery. "I am," he insisted, taking my hands. "But these things take time, Emma. I have obligations, commitments." "To criminal organizations," I said bluntly. He didn't deny it. "To people who have been loyal to me, I can't just walk away overnight without ensuring they're taken care of." I wanted to believe him, and mostly I did. I saw how he was changing, how he carefully kept his 2 worlds separate to shield Lily and me from the darker aspects of his life. In April, he asked me to move in with him, not to the penthouse, but to a beautiful brownstone he'd purchased in a family neighborhood with excellent schools. I hesitated, despite how much time we already spent together. "I need to know it's really over, Alex," I told him. "The dangerous parts of your business. I need to know Lily, and I won't ever be in the middle of something like Christmas night again. Come with me," he said, taking my hand. "There's something I need to show you." He drove us to an office building downtown, a legitimate business address, not a shadowy warehouse. Inside, he introduced me to a team of lawyers, accountants, and business managers. "This is the future," he explained as we toured the offices. Volkov Enterprises, real estate, shipping, technology investments, all above board, all properly registered and taxed. He showed me documents, legal filings, corporate registrations, tax forms. "I've been working on this transition for months," he continued. "It's almost complete. Another few weeks to finalize the remaining divestments, and I'll be exactly what I appear to be, a successful businessman with diverse investment interests." "And the other people? The ones who worked for you before?" "Those who wanted legitimate work have been placed in the new companies," he explained. "Those who didn't have been given generous severance packages and clear boundaries." Just like that, I still found it hard to believe he could walk away from what had clearly been a powerful criminal organization. His expression turned serious. "Not just like that, no. There have been negotiations, compromises, a few demonstrations that I may be changing my path but not losing my resolve." He touched my cheek. "But it's done, Emma, or nearly so." I studied his face, searching for any sign of deception. "Why would you do all this? Upend your entire life? The empire you built?" "Because none of it matters without you and Lily," he said simply. "I spent Christmas alone every year because I had no family, no home in the true sense of the word. Then you showed me what that felt like for one day, and I knew I couldn't go back." 2 weeks later, Lily and I moved into the brownstone. The night we arrived, Alex had prepared a scavenger hunt throughout the house for Lily, leading her to discover her new bedroom. Decorated exactly as she'd described her dream room to him weeks earlier, down to the canopy bed and star projector on the ceiling. As she explored in delight, Alex pulled me close. "Are you happy?" he murmured against my hair. "Yes," I answered honestly. "But scared too." "Of what?" "That it can't last. That your past will catch up with us somehow." He turned me to face him, his expression solemn. "I can't erase my past, Emma, but I promise you this. Protecting you and Lily is my priority above all else. Whatever it takes." Summer arrived, bringing warm days spent exploring Chicago as a family. Lily thrived, blossoming in the stability and love that surrounded her. She started calling Alex Papa Bear, after a character in one of her storybooks, and the first time she did, I saw him turn away quickly, but not before I caught the sheen of tears in his eyes. In August, on a perfect summer evening, Alex asked me to marry him. We were on his yacht on Lake Michigan, Lily already asleep in the cabin below after an exhausting day of swimming and sun. The ring was elegant but not ostentatious. He had learned my taste perfectly. "I want to build a life with you, Emma," he said, holding the ring between us. "A real life, not built on payments or pretending." The echo of my words from Christmas night wasn't lost on me. I took his face in my hands, studying the man who had transformed himself for love. "Yes," I said simply, and felt his arms wrap around me, solid and secure. We married in October, a small ceremony with only a few guests, some of Alex's legitimate business associates, my friends from the diner, and Lily, as our flower girl. As we exchanged vows, I thought about the unlikely path that had brought us here, from maid and employer to husband and wife. That Christmas, our first as a family, we created our own traditions. Alex insisted we cook the meal ourselves, just as we had done the previous year. Lily helped decorate the tree with a mixture of elegant ornaments and homemade creations. We read The Night Before Christmas together, Lily nestled between us on the sofa. As she slept, dreaming of Santa's arrival, Alex and I sat by the fire much as we had that first Christmas night. "1 year ago today, you changed my life," he said, taking my hand. "You showed a man who had everything that he actually had nothing at all." I leaned against his shoulder. "And now?" He kissed the top of my head. his voice full of wonder. Now I have everything that matters. Outside, snow began to fall, blanketing Chicago in pristine white, not like the snow stained with violence from the previous year, but clean and full of possibility. Like us. Like our future. "Merry Christmas, Alex," I whispered. "Merry Christmas, my love," he replied. The first of many, and as the fire crackled beside us and our daughter slept peacefully upstairs, I knew he was right. The path that had brought us together had been unexpected and sometimes frightening, but it had led us home, to each other, to family, to love that had transformed a lonely man who spent every Christmas alone into a husband and father who would never be alone again.